The hack heard round the world. The people who hacked into infidelity dating site Ashley Madison are starting to out its customers. Can those married people who thought this was all a private affair lawyer up and sue the company? Then Bill Cosby going on offense. But will the new strategy actually backfire? Our panel of attorneys will weigh in on that. And also, be careful what you post on Facebook. People who you don't want seeing it could now be doing just that. And you could maybe be in a whole lot more trouble than you thought with the law. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to start with that cyber attack on Ashley Madison. For those who don't know, it's probably good for you. It is a dating website where married folks go to find people, well, to cheat with. Hackers recently broke into the site and threatened to release the names and personal details of its users if they don't shut the thing down. Now, the cyber criminals are following through on their threat, and they're starting to out the folks on the site. The company says it's discreet, but can the folks who got outed now sue Ashley Madison? And moreover, can some of the stuff they found actually be used at trial? Let's get to our panel with some familiar faces and a return engagement. Jim Koutsouras, of course, criminal defense attorney in Manhattan. He sits on the board of directors of the New York City Criminal Bar Association, frequently lecturing at New York Law School and the bar associations in Queens in New York City. By the way, he'll take us to jolly old England when he's lecturing there one time and let us sit in the back and heckle him. Ira Gar, high-profile divorce attorney. He represented Ivana Trump and Rupert Murdoch in their respective divorce cases. Trust me, if he's on the other side, you're already in a lot of trouble. Mayo Bartlett, an attorney.
He's on the other side.
Yeah, we set that one up, Jimmy. By the way, Mark, we set that up to just take the cue.
Your wife says nice things about you. As long as I'm not dealing with Ashley Madison, she's good.
Just stop now, Mark. Mayo is the attorney at the law offices of Mayo Bartlett PLLC, former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office. He's not sitting across from Ira. And the aforementioned Mr. Furnish, professor of Brooklyn Law, has argued before the U.S.
Doesn't
Supreme
matter much
Court.
when I got him sitting across from me.
Okay. Well, first of all, Ira, I think not that you're harder for clients, but you might be getting a bunch more soon with this Ashley Madison development.
So will we.
So how is this, in your vantage point, going to work? People all the time. I remember once I went skydiving, and I loved when they gave me a waiver that said, if something doesn't go wrong here, don't come to us. Yeah, right. There is no such abdication of responsibility from the site. That said, do they have exposure here? If somebody's on the site and all of a sudden their name becomes public, what kind of expectation of privacy should they ever have expected from this website?
Well, I don't look at it in the criminal context, but in the civil context, I suppose, are they negligent? Did Ashley Madison do anything? Could they reasonably have prevented somebody from hacking? If they couldn't, I don't see how they would be liable. And I don't know what expectation of privacy someone has when they're putting their whole life and their sordid life on a website. I mean, here's my picture. Here's a picture of my penis. Here's who's a very close friend of mine.
Anthony Weiner doing it.
He's not. Trust me, he's not the only one.
He doesn't need the site.
No, but seriously, I mean, they put salacious details or apparently married people are advertising to meet other married people and saying, oh, it's a hookup, it's safe. I'm married, you're married, you don't want to talk about it. And they provide details.
I got no sympathy for the morons on this, Mark, but
Right.
That said, there were a few interesting twists to this. The hacker said to the site, you basically shut it down and we won't out your customers. They chose not to. You could argue it's extortion or blackmail.
Well, it is extortion
It
or
is.
blackmail.
But nonetheless, if you're one of the customers and the site basically said to the hackers, and now your name and already names have become public, do you have any recourse against them?
Yeah, I think you do have recourse because let's be clear about what this is and what it isn't. It's not illegal activity. It's arguably immoral activity among consenting adults. They're probably using pseudonyms and hiding their identities anyway. That said, you can find all that out through the ISP address. But here's the point. I think it turns on what representations, and obviously I haven't visited this particular site, so I don't.
Just give us a hypothetical.
Just keep going for your sake, Mark.
He's acclimating very very well. But still, I don't know what the click-throughs say. I don't know what representations they made about protecting your identity and your personal data. And I think it's going to turn upon those representations, what they made, and also, as Ira identified, what was foreseeable.
It's kind of like the whole
Well, to
point
that
of it.
end, though, Jimmy, is there admissibility questions if it goes to divorce proceeding? He's sitting on the other side of you and saying, I look at this animal here. Can you say, time out, this was poisoned fruit? This was under, you got no shot.
No, there might be admissibility problems in terms of authenticating the stuff.
Authenticating, but not on a poisonous fruit
Right, I
basis. I
agree
mean, the
with
fact that it was exposed illegally, perhaps, does not mean that in a divorce context, the divorce litigation attorneys can't use it. I mean, I agree with Mark. It's a matter of what representations the site made to people, but you have to think that there's some expectation because it is a private, secret, we're not going to tell anybody affair. So it really does depend on what contractual provisions there
Well,
there
the
are.
hackers have criminal exposure too
Right.
under the Federal Criminal Fraud Access and Abuse Act, which, believe it or not, is right now the subject of proposed amendments in Congress. But what they did is quintessentially a violation of the statute as
You know,
written.
man, we say this tongue in cheek because of the site, and not all of us have a ton of sympathy for some of the folks that are going to be exposed. That said, how much online privacy has bled into all your different worlds that you guys are in, let alone national security, et cetera, et cetera? It's becoming a huge component. You know, I had a terrorism expert, and he said, cyber terror, that's even of a greater threat to us than lone wolves and all the rest. You shut down the grid, et cetera. But just from the legal perspective, on a broad level, forgetting specialties, this is just a new reality that the folks haven't caught up with, let alone the law.
Well, it's a new reality, but on top of that, as we've talked about it in the past, when you sign up and you go to iTunes and you click I agree, you haven't read, most people have not read, you know, the 100 pages of what you're agreeing to. And so here it's a contract, and largely if that contract says you're going to hold us harmless, you're going to have a problem because you've electronically given your signature by saying you agree. The other thing is that lots of states still do have adultery on the books as a crime. Now it's a crime that largely goes unenforced. However, you actually could face criminal consequences if they find that you had an affair. But the bigger issue really is going to come down to...
Well, the company, too, is promoting adultery, too.
Well, the company
theory,
very well could be, but it's going to come down to e-discovery experts. So you're going to have an electronic discovery expert who's going to determine, number one, did the company take prudent steps to make sure that it safeguarded the information?
Yep.
Number two, how can you prove that it's authentic so that the information is admissible in the first place? But those are the same issues that you deal with when your bank gets hacked and you lose your money, or
Yeah, but the
potentially.
bank makes good. They do.
So far, the banks have
Yeah.
made good, but
Well,
going
they're
towards
making good.
cyber terrorism and
Who
where it
says
could
there's
go.
no market out there still using the site?
I'm curious, use whatever time window you want, the last 5 years, 10 years, when there's a contentious divorce and infidelity's at the center of it, how much has the online thread here become basically the smoking gun, less so than the photos or the letters or whatever else?
It's grown tremendously in the last 5 to 10 years. I had a client who had her teenage son purloin her husband's iPad because she knew he had it there. The kid said, I needed it for my homework, and gave it to mom, and mom found names of girlfriends and places and rendezvous. But I'm amazed at what people, bright people, put on the internet. Because in this world, I didn't know it. I wasn't a computer person. I was too old. I didn't grow up doing computers. We have experts who've come and said, get me that hard drive. If you hit it with an atom bomb, I can find it. Once it's there, it doesn't go away. So pressing delete or pressing erase, like they talked about in the...
And do you respect some of the people I'm most surprised to put on? Are attorneys.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm talking guys who are senior partners at white shoe firms, and what the rocket scientists put on there, it's unbelievable.
Look at the trials going on
Oh,
all the
absolutely
time.
right.
It's all about emails. It's all about electronic communications.
One more thing, unrelated, but obviously we're in the political cycle. We never stop in it. But I want to ask you, we mentioned one of your clients, Ivana Trump. You handled the divorce here, did quite well for her, by the way. Somehow, this clown is sitting with 20%. Who knows when the final polls get adjusted for the comments about McCain. That said, you're privy, at least to divorce number one for the guy. If some of the stuff becomes public, do you think there's any shock value of what's in those things that could change the public's mind, or no?
Without discussing what might be in depositions, because the issue initially in his case, before I got in, I was, I think, the third lawyer in the chain, was they were trying to set aside the prenuptial agreement. So a lot of it was the negotiations, but let's say hypothetically there was evidence in there that he appeared cheap, or he appeared manipulative, or that he appeared difficult.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Could it be any
but
worse?
also, sometimes people, although it goes beyond what you're asking in a deposition, they blurt out personal things. So then there may have been personal things about
Donald Trump talking about himself personally. What a shock. in a
No,
deposition.
or conversely, Ivana complaining about certain things he may have done during the marriage. If they were less than nice, things that might offend the entire female population, it's not going to help his.
Oh, all of it helps, because any piece of bad publicity helps this guy, because he trades on bad publicity. I mean, that's what it's all about.
For a while.
For a while.
Nobody really thinks that this is a serious presidential candidate, no matter with all of this nonsense.
I had on.
I know him. I think he thinks.
Well,
there's no
of course
question what he
thinks he's.
I think he thinks he's president.
I had on a
he's
congressman
president
who believes, at least within the Republican circles, they still don't know how to handle him. They've tried, they made the mistake, they waited 3 days too long to condemn on the immigration stuff. They missed that window. Then they all went after him on the McCain stuff, and you wait till the latest polls come in. They're going to adjust, it'll come down a little bit, but he'll still be the front runner.
Right.
He'll be
But
on the
isn't that
stage
just
for the
because
first
of
debate.
name recognition and because there's 15
Absolutely.
other
And
people
I've had
there?
different consultants tell me, you're wasting your time talking about this. This guy will fade.
Of course he'll
But
fade.
his financial records are now out there. People are going to parse through that. I don't know. I think we live in a
sick
reality
world, a sick-
TV
well, it
age
is a-
that everybody likes a
That's
train
right.
wreck. So
That's
he's
right.
going to last longer than I think many people expect.
This is life imitating artlessness.
But
is
that's
what
why I
this is.
think, like, the disclosure of some private, like a deposition, for example. Somebody says, I'm worth X billion dollars, and if you see a deposition where you find out things are borrowed money, there's a lot
Yes.
more
Right.
debt than there was, I'm not the person I represent to be.
I don't think he needs collections, but my bet is there's one extra zero at minimum versus reality for what he purported. Okay, coming up next here.
Is there information
Update
about
on
the
Bill
hair
Cosby.
piece?
Mark can't let me get through flipping tees. We got a new strategy from Mr. Cosby. Instead of hanging back, he's fighting back. The question, though, is will this possibly backfire on him? We'll be back with that.